Hello! Welcome to Denison. I'm Dr. Matthews, and I'm here to chat with you today about your Denison liberal arts education, Learning for a Lifetime. We call this presentation Learning for a Lifetime because at Denison, we believe that it would be folly to train you for one particular job or even one particular career. We know that across your working lifetime, you'll be changing careers many, many times. So it would seem that we want to be able to train you in a way that would be independent of any particular career or any particular job. We can ask questions about what kinds of skills will serve you well in whatever your career might be across your lifetime, and also what kind of educational experiences would be best for you to have now to help you in your personal life. So with that, what we're going to do is introduce you to the idea of becoming an all-purpose problem solver. This is a major goal of a Denison education. And to appreciate why this is important, I'm going to show you some pictures that will highlight some of the many challenges and problems that people have had to solve, sometimes in their professional lives, sometimes in their personal life. But in any case, you'll see a broad range of problems and why it's a good thing to be educated very broadly and for a lifetime. We can think, for example, about some recent natural disasters. Here's a photograph showing Hurricane Sandy and its aftermath. And you can imagine the wide range of responses that would be necessary in order to solve the problems caused by natural disasters like this, or like the flood and tsunami that occurred off of the coast of Sendai, Japan just a couple of years ago. Not all disasters are natural in origin. Some of them are man-made. For example, just a few years ago, off of our own Gulf Coast, we had a tremendous oil spill, and this wreaked havoc on the region. Lots of people had lost their livelihoods because of this, and there was tremendous damage done to the surrounding wildlife. A very different kind of problem, and you might find that at some point in your career, part of your profession brings you to solving a problem like this, one that we might not have anticipated, or it might be that in your personal life you've got to respond to something along these lines. There are other kinds of problems that we see on a regular basis occurring throughout the world. For example, there are problems that arise due to political strife and political turmoil. This frequently generates refugees, sometimes thousands of people, sometimes millions of people, who must leave their nation of origin and who encounter untold suffering. Sometimes the suffering is not political in nature, but it's actually financial in nature. And you can think back to recent times where a small ripple in a relatively small country had huge impacts across global markets. So we're increasingly in a connected global marketplace, and we need problem solvers of all varieties to address these kinds of issues. Relatedly, there are medical issues. For example, as our population continues to age, more and more people are struggling with Alzheimer's disease. It might be that your career takes you into the medical professions in some way, but even if it doesn't, it's almost certainly the case that somebody in your family is going to be struggling with some kind of medical illness that might be very much similar to Alzheimer's disease or some other neurodegenerative disease. How best to respond to these challenges? We also have some challenges at the other end of the age spectrum. That is, we can think about children who are increasingly being diagnosed with autism spectrum disorders, and we see here the uptick over time, just over the last few decades or so, and the number of children who are receiving this diagnosis. We have a special responsibility to find out not only what's causing this, but also to respond most appropriately to children in their special needs who are diagnosed with autism. Staying with children for just a moment, another problem that's plaguing society right now is that we have gross disparities in educational opportunities and in educational outcomes. And you might choose to devote some of your career time to addressing problems like this. Surely, as a parent yourself someday, you might want to be very much involved in your child's education, and these kinds of issues will be germane to you really throughout your lifetime. Of course, we shouldn't fool ourselves into thinking that these problems are only contemporary problems. That is to say that throughout history, we can go to any moment in time and recognize that the people of that time would have had crises, problems of their own that needed to be solved. Whether you're in the United States or finding yourself anywhere in the world at any particular point in time, here we have a diagram of a Nazi concentration camp. It's very clear that there's always a need for all-purpose problem solvers. And this is why it's not a good idea to train just for one particular job or one particular career. Your education should be much broader than that. So what we try to do at Denison is train you for a lifetime of learning, so that no matter where you are in the world, and no matter when you are in the world, you're ready to respond well to life's challenges. How do we do that? Well, it's really the matter of having a terrific curriculum that we center around creative and critical thinking. This is the hallmark of a Denison education. And the way that we impart that to you is we have a strong emphasis on what we call generative responses. And when I say generative responses, we will demand of our students at all times that they are doing more than just checking off a box on a multiple choice exam. Rather, what we require is that you somehow generate responses to a wide range of problems, all of which will demand some creative and critical thinking. And we impart this to you through a couple of different mechanisms. First, there's an emphasis on writing. Because Denison has a very desirable class size, that is to say we have small classes where there's a lot of student-faculty interaction, and you get to know your faculty members well. You will have lots of feedback from your faculty member on your writing style. Time after time, rewriting and rewriting so that your writing skills get to be very finely polished. This is an important communication skill such that you can express creative and critical responses to a wide range of problems. Another important communication skill is speaking. We know that many people have a tremendous fear of speaking in public. In fact, as a psychologist, I know that this is one of the great anxieties that most people have, speaking in front of other groups. And what we want our Denison graduates to be able to do is speak comfortably, whether they're in a relatively small group or a much larger group. We want to make sure that the Denison graduate is a person who's not afraid to speak up when they're trying to solve a problem of any variety. Similarly, another source of anxiety for a lot of people is quantitative reasoning. Not all problems have quantitative solutions, but many of them do, and many people are essentially afraid of a number. We want to make sure that the Denison student is not afraid of a number, not afraid to speak, and writes well, and is very versed in generating a broad range of solutions, thinking creatively and critically about whatever might be confronting them at that particular time. We also recognize that becoming an all-purpose problem solver is important, but that's not the only purpose or the only goal in your education. We also want you to be able to fully appreciate the joys of music or the awe that science can inspire. So we'll give you lots of opportunities to deepen your appreciation for these other aspects of life that really enrich our existence. So how do we go about doing that? At Denison, we frequently think of this Venn diagram, where here we have academics, and we are first and foremost an academic institution. But the academics occur within a broad variety of experiences and within a living learning community at which you are the center. I'd like to say a little bit now about the experiences that you'll have as a Denison student. At Denison, we emphasize experiential learning. That is, whether you're taking a course in music or sciences or whatever it might be, we give you learning by doing opportunities, hands-on opportunities. We think that's an important part to you becoming an all-purpose problem solver. If you're taking a chemistry course, for example, you'll be reading about a lot of chemistry experiments, but in addition, you'll actually be conducting the chemistry experiments in the laboratory. If you're taking a biology class, you'll be reading about how one takes biological samples from a bioreserve, but more than that, you'll actually go into our 350-acre bioreserve and take some samples yourself, learning by doing hands-on. We think of a Denison education as very much an immersion experience, and this characterizes our academics at Denison. We also recognize that some of the experiential learning, in fact a lot of it, goes on outside of the classroom. The interactions that you have with your roommates and with your classmates and other people on campus. We think of Denison as a 24-hour living learning community. And so to appreciate that point, I'd like to give you some feel for how you might get involved here on campus. We encourage all students to get involved in lots of different ways. On the very first week of class, every year, we have a campus activities fair. And here are some photos from a recent campus activities fair. What you'll notice is that as you go from table to table, and there are 150 or more different tables, each of the on-campus groups is attempting to persuade you to join them, and you'll see that we have a broad variety of interests represented there. Almost certainly we'll have a few groups that will be of interest to you, and you and your friends can get involved to the extent that you'd like to get involved. We encourage you to do that. And if it turns out that 150 different organizations isn't enough for you, you always have the opportunity to form your own group, but we think it's important that you get involved. Another way to get involved is to grab a friend and go enjoy a Denison lecture. We're very fortunate here at Denison to have a tremendous endowment which supports lecture series by all kinds of speakers who are in the political realm, and across these two rows, you'll see some faces of people from all across the political spectrum. We also bring in artists and astronauts, writers of every stripe, people who have really made their mark in their respective fields. You'll have the opportunity to go to those lectures and not only see them live, but also you'll have the chance to interact with those speakers. Typically at the end of each session, we have an open mic opportunity, and you can walk up to the mic and ask one of these highly accomplished individuals, one of these highly accomplished problem solvers, a question that's of interest to you. We think this is a tremendous benefit of the Denison experience. We're also very much inspired by you and your inclination to do volunteer work. We know that Denison students really enjoy volunteering, and to facilitate that and to make that an even greater reality for you and for your classmates, we have the Alford Center for Service Learning. This is an organization on campus that plugs Denison students in to any number of service learning opportunities and volunteer opportunities. Sometimes those occur right here on campus. Sometimes you'll have volunteer opportunities off campus if you so choose. I'm particularly grateful to the Alford Center because I know that they even help us as teachers introduce with our students, or to our students, some service learning opportunities inside of our classes. And the students have reported that they've enjoyed this very much. Let's talk a little bit about the community that we have here at Denison. That was the third circle in our Venn diagram, at which you were in the center. So here at Denison, we go out of our way to bring faculty, staff, and students from all over the world, from very diverse backgrounds, to create an outstanding community for you. And that community is characterized by these two principles, integrity and respect. It's characterized by integrity because we learn together. And we have an academic code of integrity that was, a few years ago, proposed by students and ratified by the faculty. So all members of the community were very much inspired by the reverence that the students had for the academic code of honor. With respect to this second principle, we can say that we find that because we're living together in a relatively small space and we have people with very diverse views and very diverse backgrounds, that respecting one another and respecting different opinions, different points of view, is critical to living well in our 24-hour living learning community. We also think it's important that we respect the physical environment that we're in. Denison has a beautiful campus, and you and I are lucky to be temporary occupants and stewards of this beautiful facility that we've inherited. We take this feeling of respect beyond the bounds of our own campus into the neighboring community. The surrounding community is quite beautiful, Granville, Ohio. I'm a very proud Denisonian, but I'm also a very proud Granvillian. And on a regular basis, I jog through town, and I'm always inspired when I see Denison students and faculty and staff interacting with each other and interacting with some of the folks in the community. It's a terrific place to be, and the synergies between the town of Granville and the university are really quite terrific. It's also the case that Denison students frequently will take their activities and their volunteer spirit beyond the bounds of Granville and go into neighboring towns. I myself have worked with students as we've gone to the neighboring town of Newark, and we've participated with young children in all kinds of educational demonstrations. We've done the same at local museums. Sometimes Denison students will go to the nearby town of Columbus, Ohio, which is the largest town in Ohio with a greater metropolitan area of nearly 1 million people. And there you'll see a diversity that's of great interest to many of the researchers here at Denison. And in fact, some of my colleagues, faculty colleagues, have taken their students to Columbus to engage in some research that we couldn't do here on our smaller town. Okay, I'd like to say a word now about faculty and staff and how they interact with you as a student. You should know that here at Denison, the faculty and staff are first and foremost teachers. Teaching is job one here at Denison. And whether we're talking about a member of the teaching faculty or we're talking about somebody in the student development staff, we are all professional teachers, and we are very inclined and very interested in having you develop more fully and as fully as you can as a young adult. We do this lots of different ways, but many of us are active scholars. That is to say that we are practicing scientists, we're practicing artists and writers. People all across the campus are very interested in learning about how we can more effectively help you develop. And along those lines, each faculty member is also an advisor, and every student has a one-on-one relationship with an officially assigned advisor. And the advisor is there to help you with such issues about how to choose courses, but also how to navigate what might seem to be like a complicated college experience. We recognize that some people are less familiar with the college experience, and that navigating any kind of college requires a little bit of help. And your advisor is here to help you in a one-on-one manner, really throughout your 4 years. Across the 4 years, you'll find that you develop a very close relationship with your advisor, and that brings me to this final slide. This slide reminds us that in just 4 short years, you'll be graduating from Denison, and you'll be joining a new kind of community, and that's the community of Denison alumni. The Denison alumni are highly accomplished women and men who solve a broad range of problems. And those folks are going to be very interested in meeting with you. And the reason is they have an appreciation for what it's like to be a Denison student. They see in you reflections of themselves when they were much younger. And they're fully aware of the kinds of skills you develop in a Denison education, where you are at the center of academics, community, and experience. So we hope that you've enjoyed this presentation on your Denison education, learning for a lifetime. And on behalf of the faculty, welcome to Denison.